Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to cover general ledger certificated related questions and detailed explanation to those answers. So the first question is, your customer operates 20 company codes in 10 different countries and 3 continents. What is the minimum number of clients you must configure in the SAP S/4HANA system to depict this scenario? So it is minimum. They are asking for minimum. So we need to check um, if it is if there are any rules for the country at country level or continent level. Is there any rules we need to define the SAP company code? So there are no such rules. We know that minimum we need just one company code, and according to that we can develop our company codes are related to the countries. So here it is just minimum, it is one company code. You can read the detailed explanation here. The key word in the question is minimum. You have to think then if there are any restrictions for how many company codes, countries or even continents, because there are no restrictions on what kind of organizational units are mapped on the client. The answer is that you can set everything up in a single client. What types of objects are maintained separately per client? There are 3 correct answers. So what types of objects are maintained separately per client? So separately master data, organizational units and transactional data. ABAP programs and function modules are client dependent data. This client dependent or client independent. Before answering this question we need to understand two types of data. Understand the concept of client dependent and client independent. So client dependent mastered at this. Client independent, you can think of examples, are only available in the client created. Organizational unit and company code are available in the client created. Master data, general ledger is only available within the chart of accounts on a specific client. So transactional data, general ledger posting is posted to a company code, so it is only available on that specific client. ABAP code is client independent, whether programs or function is always client independent. If you change a program in a specific client, the change affects all the objects in all the clients. So true or false, you can install as many SAP best practices packages as needed in the same client. Yes, it is true, because each country has at least one SAP best practices package. It is obvious that there has to be a way to support many packages on the same client. In principle, you can install as many SAP best practices packages as desired in a single client. What can you manually select to copy when you copy a company code? So normally what we will copy, controlling area assignment? No. Yes, controlling area. Yes, general ledger. Yes, company code currency. Yes, user profiles and document splitting rules are at client level. So the 3 options are detailed earlier, like A, C and D. However, it isn't always easy to remember so many. To answer this, you might consider which objects are defined or assigned on the company code level. For example, this would directly eliminate splitting rules, because all splitting customizing is on the client level. User roles and so on aren't really discussed in this course, but we know that these are all also at client level. We never give authorization to any of the users based on the company codes. If we give access to one role, one. So what are the three basic steps required to define a new company code? So to define a new company code, normally we will copy the existing company code and adjust the basic and address and adjust the global parameters. So defining new segments and copying existing controlling area are not part of defining a new company code. So following are the three steps in correct order: copying an existing company code, specifically the company code that looks most like the want you want to create, adjust basic and address data by changing the name and address details of the new company code, adjust global parameters. All the core settings for the company code need to be checked, such as chart of accounts, fiscal year, posting period variant, so and workflow variant and so on. There are many other parameters which we check whether these are assigned to the company code or what are the options for this company code. So we will be checking all those parameters and all those parameters in the global parameters transaction code OBY6. So which of the following assignments can be adjusted for the company code? So we can assign company, fiscal year variant and chart of accounts, and segment and leading ledger are at client level. You need to be familiar with the core objects and their assignments. The leading ledger is assigned to all company codes because there is only a single leading ledger per client. The segments are defined on the client level and assigned to profit centers. Yes, profit centers are assigned to company code. So you could argue about this. This is an example of an answer that would probably be rejected in a certification exam. True or false? You need to assign the workflow variant to a company code to be able to perform standard workflow scenarios such as parked document approvals. Yes, we have to assign assign the uh, workflow variant to the company code. This is basically the definition of the workflow variant. The variant itself is where rules are defined. In the certification, when an answer to a question seems obvious, it usually is. Which of the following organizational units are part of the enterprise structure of financial accounting? Functional area, business area, and the so functional area, business area, and the segment. So the functional area is used for cost of sales accounting in financial accounting. The business area depicts a separate business division and the segment is used for segment reporting. The operating concern is a management accounting, profitability analysis, organizational unit, and the plant is the basic logistics organizational unit. Which of the following account assignments can you configure the system to create complete balance sheet reports for? So we can use these account assignments like profit center, segment, and company code. So the company code is the default level for balance sheet reports in financial accounting. The profit center and segment are both definable in document splitting as splitting characteristics, and thus the system also can be configured to produce balance sheets at their level. The cost center can only be posted for profit and loss accounts that are cost elements, and the same goes for the profitability segment. So true or false? You assign the operating concern used for profitability analysis directly to the company code. It is false. The operating concern is assigned one to many to the controlling area. The company code is assigned to the operating concern indirectly through the assignment of company code to the controlling area. one more true or false question is, to integrate financial accounting with purchasing, you must assign the purchasing organization to the company code. Again, it is false. When you don't assign the company code to the purchasing organization, the system uses the planned to derive the correct one. What type of chart of accounts are there? So we all know there is operational, country chart of accounts, and group chart of accounts. So which objects can define the, okay, if you want to just go through the explanation, you can pause the video and go through this explanation of chart of accounts. Which objects can define the maximum length of a general ledger account? So we all know that it is chart of accounts and account group. So in the definition of the chart of accounts, you define the maximum length of the accounts. In the account group, you define the number range. The number range by default also controls the length of the field. Whichever is shortest, take priority for the account length definition. With the block indicator set on the chart of accounts, you can no longer perform postings to the company codes assigned. The indicator, it's actually a false. So the indicator blocks the accounts in the chart of accounts from being assigned to a company code. This won't affect accounts already assigned before this indicator was set and won't stop you from posting to the accounts of the chart of accounts. So which field in the company code definition of a general ledger account are always required? Account, currency, and field status group. The account, currency, and the field status group always need to be defined to create an account. These can't be affected by the field status definition of the account group. The group account is defined on the chart of accounts level, and it's indeed a required field when a group chart of accounts is assigned to the operational chart of accounts. The group account is defined on the chart of accounts level, and it's indeed a required field when a group chart of accounts is assigned to the operational chart of accounts. When creating a general ledger account and there are conflicting field statuses, which field status has the highest priority? Here you need to remember the acronym SDRO. It means like suppress, display, required, and optional. Always it follows this priority. So the suppress field status has the highest priority in this case. The priority in detail is suppress, display, required, and optional. This is the most common status prioritization in SAP S/4HANA system. What is the secondary cost general ledger account type used for? It is used for to post the internal cost allocations in management accounting. You use secondary cost accounts to post transfer postings in controlling. Among all secondary cost accounts, the balance is always 0 for a company code, because you can only debit a secondary account by crediting a secondary general ledger account. Secondary post general ledger accounts are new with SAP S/4HANA. In traditional SAP ERP system, you defined secondary cost elements. The SAP S/4HANA system does this as well via tables in the background. So if you maintain a single value for the retained earnings account, then for any P&L general ledger account you create, the P&L statement account type is assigned automatically. The P&L statement account type is assigned automatically. You only need to define the retained earnings accounts manually. If you have defined more than one retained earnings account, in this case, however, automatic assignment is no longer possible. you always have to input the correct type manually. What is the relationship between accounts of the operating chart of accounts and the local chart of accounts? The relationship is 1 to 1, one operating account to one local account. So in this, the relationship is 1 to 1. When you assign a local chart of accounts in the company code, you can only assign a local account to a single account of the operational chart of accounts. You have to map to accounting principles for accounting. Using the accounts approach to parallel valuation in SAP S/4HANA, which ledger must you use? It should be a leading ledger. Note the must in the question, as was the case from the new general ledger already. All company codes are at a minimum assigned to leading ledger. True or false? When you create a new standard ledger from scratch, it is assigned to all company codes by default. True or false? A new standard ledger won't be assigned to any company codes until you manually make the assignment and configure the ledger settings. If you create the ledger via copying, you can choose to copy the assignments and settings from the original to the new one. So the answer is false. When you create a new standard ledger from scratch, it assigned all company codes by default. New standard ledger, it does for new standard ledger, this option is not available. So only for leading ledger, when when we create an leading ledger is assigned to all company codes by default, but not with the new standard ledger. You indicate that you are posting to the ledger group of an extension ledger. How many ledgers are updated? Only the extension ledger. You indicate that you are posting to the ledger group of an extension ledger. How many? Only it only posts to only to the extension ledger, because the ledger group that contains the extension ledger is generated automatically when you create the ledger group, and there is no way to assign an extension ledger to any other ledger groups. Thus, when posting to the ledger group of the extension ledger, you can only update the extension ledger. When using the accounts approach to parallel valuation for mapping to the accounting principles, you will essentially double the general ledger accounts in the chart of accounts. No, you only need to create two sets of accounts for those accounts for which there can be differences in valuation. This doesn't mean all the accounts needs to be duplicated. In most cases, independent of the valuation approach, the accounting entries can be valuated only in a single way for all accounting principles. For these, you can have common accounts. So true or false, you can use an extension ledger to depict a separate accounting principle. Yep. Although yeah, it is true. Although you have limitations because you can only perform manual postings, you can assign an extension ledger group to an accounting principle and thus have a complete separate valuation. SAP S/4HANA comes pre-configured with common accounting principles and corresponding accounting rules and checks assigned. False. Although a SAP best practices package or client 000 might indeed have a accounting principle predefined, the accounting principle object carries no valuation rules or checks in and of itself. What is defined with the fiscal year variant? So with the fiscal year variant, we define start and end dates of the fiscal year and number of fiscal periods in a year. So open and closed fiscal periods are defined in posting period variant, and start and end dates of the calendar year are universally accepted. How many custom currency types can you assign to a company code or ledger combination? It is 8. So SAP S/4HANA system support 10 currency types. In this, 2 are default, which is company code currency and global currency, and 8 we can define our own custom currency types. What does the posting key define? Posting key defines the account type and whether it is a debit or credit line. What can you control with the tolerance group? So all the A, B, C can be controlled with the tolerance group, and maximum exchange rate deviation is defined in the company code global settings. The maximum tax amount is a very possible option here. What do you define for a tax code? For tax code, we will define whether it is a valid tax type or a, and what is the tax percentage rate. So define the tax codes valid for the tax codes per country. Within the tax code definition, you assign the relevant tax percentage rate to the taxes that you define whether an account is relevant for tax in general ledger account maintenance on the company code level. So which document splitting setting for the segment characteristic will ensure that no document line will be posted without a segment? So without a segment, if you want to make sure, without a segment, if we want to make sure the document should not get posted, we should make that segment field an required entry field. So it is mandatory field C. Your company code is assigned to 2 standard ledgers, 1 extension ledger. You post an invoice with 1 expense line with 10% VAT tax. How many line items are posted in the document entry view? In the document entry view, it will be only 3 line items. So it is like 1 expense line item, and for expense there will be a vendor and the tax line item. It's in document entry view. But if we want to post the same document in the AC docker view, it will be like, so your company code is assigned to 2 standard ledgers and 1 extension ledger. We all know that extension ledger will not post values. It derives the values from the standard ledger to which it is assigned. So the document line items will be posted to these 2 standard ledgers. So for each standard ledger, 3 line items will be posted, and if we see here, it will post 6 line items. The universal general line items depict the document after taking into consideration document splitting and ledger specific line items. Document splitting with 1 expense line won't create new line items. Inheritance would add the relevant account assignments, typically profit center and segment, to the tax and the supplier line items. The standard ledgers are both updated with this document posting. The extension ledger values are updated not by posting lines specific to the extension ledger, but through the underlying ledger, and the extension ledger is assigned to. So analytically, you will have 1 line for the supplier for each standard ledger, 1 line for each expense for each standard ledger, 1 line for the tax for each standard ledger. 6 lines total are posted in the universal journal. Which date defines the period a document can be posted to? It's a posting date. So for detailed explanation, you can read this explanation related to posting document. Which of the following fields can be configured as changeable in the document header? In the document header, document reference and document header text fields can only be changed. If you want to change the fields other than these fields, the document needs to be reversed and reposted. So if you want to read the explanation of this, you can just read it. What fields do you have to enter to make a document reversal? So we have to enter posting date and the reversal reason. So when you select a single document or multiple documents to reverse, you must define the posting date for the reversal document and the reversal reason. The reversal document type depends on the original document's document type. The document date is not entered manually and is the same as the document date of the original document. So true or false, a negative posting reversal debits the credit line items and debits the credit line items of the original document. It actually false. This statement describes a normal reversal. With a negative reversal, the system posts a negative amount on the same debit or credit side as the original document line items. This ensures the total debit or credit for the account is not affected by the wrong posting. A customer account can be defined as the clearing account for cross company code postings. Yes, not only we can define the general ledger account as a clearing account, we can also define, means like assign the clearing account as vendor or customers, and then clear the line items that balance intercompany postings. For each company code, you must define an appropriate posting key as well. Using cost of sales accounting can lead to a different profit or loss amount at the end of a period compared to the period accounting. So you using the cost of sales can lead to, no, it won't lead to different results, like it is false. Although the grouping of the amount is different, the financial result is always the same with either cost of sales or period accounting method. The difference between the two is in the breakdown detail of the cost and revenues. It will not lead to different results.